Hey guys, Nick here, and today we are getting into part 22 of What If Madison's Family Joined Rick. This is going to be a little bit longer than my average episodes, mainly because there's a decent bit to cover. We left off last time with the pretty much closing of the Wolf arc, and what will happen with Nicholas whenever it's eventually revealed that he killed Glenn. We shall find that out today. Now, Nicholas makes his way back to Alexandria after all is said and done, and leaves Enid behind, because like I said, I don't think that he would want to try and convince her. But anyways, once Maggie sees that Nicholas has returned but Glenn has not, and everyone else is back, she starts to question this, and asks Nicholas, where's Glenn? Now, I feel that she, even in the original, knew about Nicholas and Glenn's feud, but it's very up in the air whether she knew all of it. And Deanna questions this herself, because this is giving her a little bit of paranoia back to when Milton, did his thing and tried to kill Abraham and everything else. So she asks this very skeptically because she doesn't want to fully hear the answer, because she feels like she knows what happened. Nicholas really doesn't have anything to say. He can't really come up with a convincing story. He just keeps sputtering and he can't even speak properly. It's almost like he's too scared to admit, what happened. But Nick, ironically, Nick and Nicholas, it's funny because my name's Nick too. Anyway, we're going to ignore that. Nick basically answers the question for him and says that it's painfully obvious that these two did not like each other, especially after what happened with Tyrese. So he thinks that Nicholas killed Glenn in a fit of rage for, beating him up, essentially. A Pete situation. And Maggie eventually connecting the dots and realizing that, I really don't want this to be true, but it is. She just screams out in agony and just sadness, and it would be a very tearful moment, but we don't know if this is 100% true. So Deanna talks to Nicholas, well, more or less speaks up to Nicholas to try to confirm this, because if this is actually true, then this is just another Milton situation all over again. So she goes to him and it's like, this better not be true. But Nicholas starts to break down and basically openly admit that, yeah, it's true. He didn't like how he was beaten up for trying to save himself and everything else. Yes, Tyrese's death's on his hands, but the aftermath of what happened to him because of it, he felt was unjustified. Just how he knew Nicholas to be. And Deanna, she just can't believe that she trusted Nicholas's word, kind of, whenever he told her the story of what actually happened and everything else, but it was all a lie. And goes on to try to lecture him and call him out, but Rick doesn't allow her to do this, and just simply grabs out his python and boom, end of it. Because this would be basically a season earlier for Glenn's death, which I have done more than once, like at the Satellite Outpost when Michonne was part of the Saviors. Yeah, not my first take on that. But Glenn mattered a lot to Rick, and to see one of the people that saved him die, he still has his family, but now he's starting to really change character. And Maggie, she's never going to get out of this. Like we know Maggie to be now. She's never going to forget this, as I'd expect her not to, because now she's going to have to raise her coming baby Herschel all by her lonesome. And Glenn already knew of this because he told Enid in the original, but it's still sad. Glenn never gets to see his son grow up. Anyway, Carl, after all this, is on his own mission. He tells Rick and Lori, or whoever would be around at the time, who he could trust or would talk to him, that he's going to go out and find Enid. Because he was very close with Sophia, and he wasn't able to save her. After all the time that he had known her and become acquainted with her, come in a relationship with her, he couldn't save her. So he's going to save Enid to make up for that. And, eventually looking, he does find her. But it does take quite a significant amount of time. But Enid, she doesn't want to go back. Because we already know that about Enid. And says that he shouldn't have come all this way, and even questions why isn't his girlfriend Sophia with him. And Carl explains the whole ordeal of the wolves and everything that happened, and that they won the fight, but with quite a few casualties. Enid just goes on to further explain that the world's trying to die and that they should just let it. And basically the conversation she had with Glenn, but this time it's with Carl, because remember, Glenn died, Nicholas just let her be, so no one had that speech with her. So it would come with Carl instead of Glenn. And it would be more twisted because of Carl and Enid. But eventually, though it does take quite a significant amount of time, Enid does warm up to Carl, and eventually convinces her to make it back. But it does take a good amount of time, because this would be the first time they're talking to each other, and it's already season 6. And it'd be a season later, pretty much. We get the 2-month time skip after the whole thing, with the group now consisting of such: Daryl, Nick, Owen, Alicia, Michonne, Sam, Denise, Sasha, Enid, Gabriel, Rick, Lori, Deanna, Rosita, Beth, Abraham, Merle, Aaron, Dale, Jesse, Heath, Daniel, Maggie, Carl, Morgan, Bob, Carol, Madison, and Eugene. Those are all the main people, because I don't really include the small characters in my stories. I only include the ones that, give something to the story. And it's always big rosters in my stories, just because of circumstances. Anyways, since Shane is, gone, and everybody else I feel it's more natural that we include Rick and Daryl to be the ones to meet Jesus again in this situation, because there's never really been a situation where I don't include the two of them encountering Jesus in some form of way. Now, who will go to Hilltop? On one hand, I can include the same group, albeit Glenn, but that's just it. Glenn's death is what matters here to the group going to Hilltop. Rick will be the first to go, obviously. Lori, Michonne, Daryl, so some of the same group, albeit Lori, Alicia, and Abraham. So not Madison or anybody else, just Alicia would be the only Madison family member. Now the whole ordeal with Ethan and everything else would play the same way, I feel. It's just that with a few extra characters, maybe some changed lines and character development. Basically the same thing. It doesn't really give way to the story, so not too much to talk about here. But anyways, then we get into the whole Negan and the Savior situation, about what they're doing with Hilltop, and then the whole satellite outpost thing is put into effect. But now, we're going to see who goes to the satellite outpost. And the group will consist of such: Daryl, Eugene, Madison, Carol, Merle, Aaron, Heath, Daniel, Abraham, Rosita, Bob, Sasha, Rick, Nick, that rhymed, Alicia, and Michonne. So, if you want to think about it this way, that's pretty much half of the big roster that I included not 2 minutes ago. But it's just because most of them are the same characters that went. It's just a lot of them are survivors and added from Madison's side. Now, Maggie would not be included here because of the whole Glenn situation and everything else. She wouldn't want to go, even to Hilltop, I feel. So the group to be kidnapped by Paula and the Saviors this time is going to be Sasha, Bob, and Heath. Now, once it happens, Bob, albeit very, very stupidly, tries to make Sasha and Heath run away, and he'll try and hold off the Saviors by himself. But he only gets one lucky shot into a Savior's leg before he's shot down completely and utterly and just killed. Which, in turn, you would think would make Sasha and Heath drop their guns, but nope. The both of them just load down everywhere, not caring where it hits, who it hits. They're just shooting because they both cared about Bob. Obviously, Sasha more so, but yeah, they're not going to take this lying down. But Paula and a few of the Saviors that she was with managed to escape for now. Primo is still taken captive, and everyone groups together, and Abraham goes to comfort Sasha on the loss of Bob, which would be the only loss here, and he and Sasha, at last, would start to have feelings for each other. But the moment doesn't last long. Boom! A gunshot goes off, because Bob wasn't the only loss. Because remember, Paula and a few of the Saviors escaped, but they came back. They were waiting for the group to drop their guard, and Nick is the first one that they shoot at and kill. Boom! Another gunshot goes off, and it hits Merle. So, Nick and Merle, two long-standing characters who would live longer than their predecessors, would fall here to an ambush. Because Paula and the Saviors then jump out from the trees or bushes or wherever you want to put them for an ambush. And this would be their moment. Because all they needed to do was just wait for the group to be off guard. And then it didn't matter if they at least killed one or two. They'd at least drop the numbers of the group. So it wouldn't matter. They at least had to do something. And during all the confusion and the gunfight, or at least the surprise of the gunfight, Primo tries to escape. But that doesn't go so well for him, because Michonne cuts him off, literally, slicing him in two. Daryl and Alicia, both angered and furious by the deaths of Merle and Nick, because, you know, brothers. Ironically, they're both angry over the loss of brothers, so they're in a relationship, and they got brothers. It'd be a really cool relationship dynamic. And they take down Paula and the rest of the Saviors, just the two of them. And it would be a really cool dynamic between the two of their characters, especially with how far they've grown in the series. Now, with Abraham and Eugene after, like, the whole thing, after the whole Satellite Outpost thing, I don't feel that they would argue here. Because most of the feelings that they had towards each other, especially Eugene, more or less, and the whole Milton situation to back that up, I don't feel that Eugene would be dumb enough to really fight Abraham here or speak out. Not to say it was dumb, I'm just saying I don't think it would happen. Now, with the whole Daryl, Rosita, and Denise thing, few changes. Number one, Beth and Alicia would be accompanying them. And number two, Dwight and Sherry and Tina would all be dead, like I've done in more than one of my stories. So that means that Denise is not going to die. Nobody else dies besides, you know, Nick, Merle, and Bob. Carol would still go off on her own because, you know, Sophia and Mika are dead. She basically has no one except Daniel. She would meet the Saviors on the road, and you would think that Rick and Morgan would go after her. But no. Daniel says that he wishes to go after her alone. Because remember, they've been in a relationship since they met, pretty much. Like Daryl and Alicia, except, you know, I feel that Daniel and Carol would get acquainted much sooner. But at any rate, this means that Daniel is going to take care of Carol at the kingdom, take out the savior that tried to kill her, and so on and so forth. Basically what Morgan did, except with Daniel. Eventually, Maggie, who's remained at Alexandria up until this point, her pregnancy eventually advances where they gotta take her to the hilltop, and the group that will go there will consist of such another kind of big roster. Eugene, Madison, Carl, Dale, Rosita, Beth, Sasha, Aaron, Lori, Rick, Abraham, Michonne, Daryl, Owen, Morgan, and Alicia. A few of the characters I did not include for the hilltop or the satellite outpost, because the group this time is more or less consisting of the people that are much more acquainted to Maggie, especially like Dale and such. But then they get stopped by Simon and the Saviors on the road. Now, how will the conflict with Negan, Simon, and all of them go, with the revelation of the tank still yet to be confirmed to Rick and the people? How will this play into effect with Glenn not being there, with events being changed, and characters having different character developments? And that's where we leave things for the moment. Like I said, a bit longer of an episode, but I feel that it definitely needed to be for what happened, especially with the revelation of Glenn's death coming to the group, and Nick and Merle and Bob all dying. It's a lot to take in, which is why I feel that it's more than necessary that I made it 17 minutes. But I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless. Leave a comment for more suggestions, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.